Welcome back. You're with the AM Report. Thanks so much for staying with us. Let's focus in on this because it is all about the Rugby Championship test match tomorrow between New Zealand and South Africa. At the moment, the All Blacks top the standings after 2 rounds, but only by a bonus point, with all 4 teams in the competition having registered a win and a loss in a topsy-turvy start to the annual Southern Hemisphere competition. Coming off of a 29-23 loss to the Pumas, their first defeat on Argentina soil, Scott Robertson's New Zealand team would have their aura further eroded if beaten by the Springboks in Auckland, where the hosts last lost in 1994. SuperSport rugby commentator Matt Pearce joins us now from Auckland in New Zealand. A very good morning and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Good to be chatting to you. So much has been spoken about this Eden Park fortress and South Africa's ability to be able to actually chip in and finally set a record of their own. How possible is it, Matt, having spent the week there?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it is possible. Of course, it's possible. The weird thing, as you said in your intro, is that this year's Rugby Championship has been a little bit topsy-turvy. You know, every team having 1 win and 1 loss, and that 1 bonus point separating the All Blacks at the top of the table. So it's a tricky one to call, but just going through my preparation notes, I was looking back at the 2 test matches in South Africa last year, and the starting 15 for the Springboks tomorrow has 12 of the players who started in the last game between the 2 teams. That was in Cape Town last year, a game that was won by 18 points to 12. But the entire back line is the same, and 5 of the forwards. And the only 3 players not in the starting lineup who were the last time they played are Jasper Wiese, who's still got 1 match to serve of his 4-match suspension. And then Frans Malherbe, who we know is out with a long-term injury, and Bongi Mbonambi, who didn't travel to New Zealand for personal reasons. But for the rest, it's 12 players who were on the field at the start of the game the last time these 2 teams met. And that looks to me like a lot more settled combination than is the case with New Zealand. There are a number of players in this All Black squad who are playing South Africa for the very first time. And the Springbok legends all say you make 2 debuts in rugby. You make your test debut and then you play your first match against New Zealand. And I've been asking that question inside the All Black camp this week and some past players as well, just saying, is it the same for the New Zealanders? And they confirm that it is. So your first test match against the Springboks for an All Black is a very big deal indeed. So that comes with its own sort of pressure. And one thing I can assure you is that they are feeling the pressure. This All Black side, having come off a loss against Argentina, having not beaten South Africa last year in the 2 games in South Africa, in fact, being on a 4-match losing streak against the Springboks. This All Black group is feeling the pressure of having to defend that very, very proud reputation at Eden Park. So there's pressure all round, no question. And there are nerves in both camps. And it would be silly to suggest that there weren't nerves in both camps. It's how they channel that, turn the nervousness into excitement, convert the pressure into an excellent performance on the night. But it really is shaping up to be one of the epic clashes. I've been saying all week, I don't think form counts for a great deal in a match of this nature.
Yeah, I know Rassie Erasmus says try to play down the significance of it, almost trying to just release that pressure valve a little bit. But would you say it's the biggest match since the Rugby World Cup final?
I think it would have to be, yes. That question's been asked of the coaches a lot. And Rassie's been very quick to say, well, it's a bit disrespectful to other opponents. You know, Australia came to South Africa a few weeks ago and beat the Springboks at Ellis Park. So it would be perhaps perceived as cheapening that performance by Australia to say, well, actually, you know, the biggest game of the year is this one. But I think any neutral would say that certainly on the men's rugby calendar, this would be the one. It's number 1 in the world versus number 2 at a stadium where, as you rightly say, the All Blacks have not lost since 1994, and that unbeaten stretch is now 50 matches. It's quite extraordinary. There's been 2 draws in those 50, but they haven't been beaten in 50 games of rugby at the stadium. So it's almost like an advantage before kickoff.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of Springboks' success in this game, it sounds cliched to say you've got to start well, but I think in an environment like this, it becomes even more key. You certainly don't want to be getting a crowd in behind an All Black side that starts quickly. And one thing I am sensing on the ground here is amongst the New Zealand rugby-loving public, there is some doubt about this All Black side and where they've headed under their coach, Scott Robertson, who only got the job last year. So there's a little bit of doubt. And if the Springboks can keep that crowd silent in the first quarter of the game and really get under the skin of the All Blacks, then the result is most definitely on.
Matt, I know that you are about 20 minutes away from the captain's press conference with Jesse Kriel, having had the captain's run a little bit earlier on in Auckland. We'll ask you a little bit about the conditions and how the pitch is looking. But yesterday, one of the big surprises was Siya Kolisi actually making the starting 15 in the number 8 jersey, but not wearing the captain's armband. Why is that?
It's actually very simple, and I do think, with the greatest respect, the reaction back home has been a little bit over the top. And Rassie did explain it very clearly in the team announcement press conference. And the simple explanation is that they announced the team internally on a Sunday, at the very latest on a Monday morning. And Jean-Luc du Preez was named to start this test match at number 8, and Siya Kolisi was not named in the 23. He came over to New Zealand knowing that there was still a little bit of work to do on his knee, and they weren't sure how he was going to go in training. So once the team had been announced internally to the team, Siya then trained on Monday, and he trained well. He went through the whole session. I was at that session, and then the medical staff assessed him after that training session, and also on Tuesday morning. They were worried that there may be some stiffness after a full training session, but he came through it really well, and he trained again on Tuesday. And then at that same training session on Tuesday, Jean-Luc du Preez did some knee ligament damage. The poor guy, you have to feel for him. He's been on the brink of getting another test cap on a number of occasions, and each time illness or injury has ruled him out. So he is actually on his way back to South Africa. There's no chance of recovery during this New Zealand tour. So then it was a case of, well, who plays number 8? And really the only 2 options were Kwagga Smith, who has started in that jersey before, and Siya, who started against Australia at number 8 at Ellis Park. And while he was on the pitch before being forced to leave the field, was outstanding in that role. So it was a relatively straightforward decision, but it was Siya who then went to the head coach and said, look, you named the team on Sunday, and Jesse Kriel was named as the captain, and I think you should leave it that way. And it really is as simple as that, but a great display of the maturity and the togetherness of this group of players. There are a number of very strong leaders within the group, and it's not really about the individual who has the C in brackets behind his name, but it was Siya's suggestion to the coach, look, if I'm very happy to play, I'm feeling good, but you named Jesse as the captain on Sunday, and that should remain.
Have they rushed him?
I don't believe so. I mean, I have this privilege of traveling with the Springboks, and I was there at training on Monday and Tuesday. I think they would have given him more time had he needed it. But I think he proved conclusively on Monday and Tuesday that he came through 2 very rigorous training sessions, and indeed again on Wednesday where they do scrumming and mauling, and he showed no sign of discomfort and looked in very, very good form. He's in a very good space.
Matt Arabile is in studio, and he's got a question for you because he's going to be waking up bright and early, putting on his fire along with a lot of other South Africans tomorrow morning.
Yeah, look, I worry about the alcohol intake that's going to be had at 8 a.m. in the morning watching this game. But, Matt, Is it not going to be just as important to stick one over Ardie Savea in his 100th game as well? Because while Siya Kolisi and Ardie are great friends, this is going to be that sort of match, isn't it? It's going to be a game where they'll probably want to try and do that to each other too.
Look, I think one of the things that Rassie's been very clear with the players is to try and avoid the sideshows, try and avoid thinking about this record. He's tried to focus them in on the fact that this is a rugby field. It's 100 meters by 70 meters, and it's the same as any other rugby field. It's just one that the All Blacks have had more success than any other. And similarly with the Ardie Savea 100th cap, you know, there is enormous respect for Ardie Savea, and justifiably so. He's been such an incredible All Black, and off the field, he's an incredible human being and very close friends with Siya. A man of enormous faith who gave a wonderful press conference yesterday and talking about his rugby journey. And no doubt after the game, there will be a moment of quiet reflection and celebration of his achievement between the two teams. But when the game is on, that really isn't a factor. And, you know, you've got to try and put, like I say, those side shows to one side and concentrate on the task at hand. You know, Siya playing number 8 for just the second time, having done it against Australia a couple of weeks ago. He's relishing that opportunity in conjunction with Marco van Staden, who's had a decent shift at number 6 with a number of injuries around this season. And then Pieter-Steph du Toit coming back after picking up a concussion in the first test against Australia, missed out on the game in Cape Town. And he is back to torment the All Blacks, hopefully, as he did in the Rugby World Cup final, where he made 28 tackles. It's interesting, actually. We're running at SuperSport, as you may know, this Springbok Dream 15 concept, and what fans can vote on at the moment, with jerseys 1 to 6 having been filled already. They're currently voting on jersey number 7. And Pieter-Steph du Toit is one of those options, along with Ruben Kruger and Dani Rousseau and Andre Venter, and then also Juan Smith. And we were doing a podcast with All Black legend Mills Muliaina just yesterday, and I showed him the options for the Dream 15 at number 7. And he said, wow, imagine having to pick one of those. But he said if he had to pick one, it would be Pieter-Steph du Toit. And he's in that number 7 jersey again against the All Blacks, and hopefully can inflict a bit of damage.
Okay, Matt, we have completely run out of time, but just give me the scoreline that is going to go with this anticipated torment of the All Blacks at Eden Park tomorrow.
Sure, I'm really bad at predictions because, you know, you can get adverse weather conditions at a moment's notice in Auckland. You can get cards in a game, as the All Blacks did in the Rugby World Cup final, that can affect things. I've seen the team train this week. I think, as I said at the start, with 12 players in the starting lineup that were in it the last time they played, and the All Blacks are perhaps a little bit unsure about their combination. I can see the Boks making a bit of history and getting over the line in a very, very tightly contested game. You know, I've been lucky enough to be around this environment for almost 2 decades. We're celebrating 30 years of SuperSport this year, and this game ranks right up there with one of the highlights before the ball's even been kicked off. So looking forward to it, and I hope everybody back in SA is as well.